Sup, y'all? It's me. It's your boy Asmongold, and today I want to talk to you guys about a question that a lot of people have been asking me recently, which is pretty much, why have I stopped raiding? And before I get into the reasons why and everything else around that, I do want to kind of define what I mean by raiding in this video. I don't mean doing normal mode pugs or heroic pugs or your LFR. I don't mean doing old raids on the weekends with your friends. I mean doing the current raid at Mythic difficulty with a guild on a specific time schedule, right? So like my guild raids Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so I would have to be online raiding on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8 to 12. So I have effectively stopped doing that. I have come to a couple of raids, I've killed a couple of mythic bosses in Antorus, but in terms of like my guild actually expecting me to be there, that is no longer the case. And that has been the case for, I guess probably at least a few months now, because I stopped raiding whenever my guild was doing Mythic Mistress, and honestly, I'm gonna say right now, like, one of the reasons that I stopped raiding was that fucking boss. I just had no fun doing that boss. I thought it sucked. But there were a number of other reasons for why I stopped, and I wanted to explain those to you guys right now. A lot of people have really liked watching like my rating guides, and so I kind of wanted to explain what's kind of gone into that decision, because it's not just one thing, and that's something that I want you guys to understand. This isn't just like, oh, I stopped raiding because of like titanforging, or I stopped raiding because of like my guild and somebody was dumb in my guild. There was no one thing. It was kind of like a death of a thousand cuts, a perfect storm of events that have kind of changed my mentality on raiding in general. Now, the first main thing is that I do want to say that this is probably not going to be a permanent decision. One of the big reasons why I stopped raiding was my schedule changed. Back in the day, I would raid, and this is like Nighthold into like early TOS, I would raid at night, right? And I would also wake up very late. I would actually sometimes have to wake up early for my raids, and my raids started at 8 p.m. So I had a completely ridiculous schedule, and because of that, it was very, very weird for me, and it pretty much cut me off of any sort of social interaction that I could have. It made my streams unfun, it made everything a rush, and it just basically made me unhappy in general. And I was not, my stream was suffering, my raid was suffering, my guild was suffering. It's like your classic textbook definition of a lose-lose situation. Everything was negative about it. So I got suspended on Twitch, and then I come back and I start streaming in the mornings, and things were a lot better then. I was enjoying the game more, my streams are doing better, everything was just better. So because I was streaming in the mornings and I was starting my stream at like 7 a.m., I was going to bed at like maybe 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And I'm still going to bed relatively early, especially if you're considering the fact that I was going to bed or actually waking up at 8 p.m. before. So I would go to bed before the raids were over. So I wasn't really able to stream and, you know, keep that time schedule and keep that time slot and everything, while at the same time raiding and you know, maintaining everything with my guild. And that was one of the big reasons that I had to make the decision, is that I just, at the end of the day, I mean, I just wasn't really having fun raiding, especially not on stream. I felt like it was one of those things where I wasn't able to devote myself fully to my stream, and I also wasn't fully able to devote myself to my raiding guild. So I was letting them down, I was letting my stream down, I was letting everybody down, I was letting myself down, and if I was going to say any of these reasons were number one, that would probably be it. Now, another reason that's a much more larger meta issue is that, you know, as I get older, right, I mean, I've raided, I've played the game, I mean, I've played since July of 2006, and it's almost fucking 2018, right? I still can barely even believe it's 2017. But anyway, feels like this year has gone by so fast. But I've done it for so long. I've raided for so long, and I felt like I've kind of hit the pinnacle in terms of like kind of getting satisfaction out of raiding. Back whenever I was younger, I would really get a lot out of raiding. Whenever I would see that my guild killed a boss before other guilds, I would feel good about that. It would be satisfying to me, and I would gain some sense of self-worth, right? And is that silly to gain self-worth out of killing a raid boss in World of Warcraft before another guild? Yes, of course it's silly, right? But at the same time, that's kind of how I felt, and I feel like that's the way a lot of other people feel. obviously if you're getting something out of something, you're going to continue doing it. And now that I've gotten older, I've had those successes. I've had a number of like really good tiers under my belt, and I can go back and I don't really feel like I need to continue proving myself every single different tier. I feel like I've made a lot of relatively good accomplishments in the game. I've enjoyed my time, and whenever I used to raid very seriously, I'm talking like when I would raid from Sunday nights to Thursday nights, and it's a 5-night guild, right? And then Fridays and Saturdays I do like keying runs for like Black Temple and everything on my alts. So I was very, very serious playing the game and raiding back then, and I was pretty good. And as time has gone on, those accomplishments have diminished because there's a certain amount of kind of, once you do that a certain amount of times, you don't really get that same sense of satisfaction out of it. And also, it's just something that I've already done, right? I feel like I have other things in my life right now that I can base my self-worth out of and that I can feel good about without having to tie that to rating. And that was a big reason, right? Is I felt like it was something that I could actually accomplish. I could be put on an even playing field with everybody else, and I could succeed and I could beat them. And that's something that I didn't really have in life. And World of Warcraft gave me a controlled environment that I could really just enjoy that and put everything that I have into it and actually get something out. So I think maybe it's just like me getting older and my priorities changing. But again, as I said, I'm still collecting useless fucking battle pets. So don't worry, it's not like I'm going casual. Now, on top of that, I do want to talk about the raids themselves. I felt like Tomb of Sargeras was a very, very unfun raid for me to progress through. I felt like there were a lot of mechanics in Tomb of Sargeras where one player could wipe the raid, and those types of mechanics are just simply not fun for me, right? And it's not fun for me to go through a raid and then, somebody hit, like, let's say, well, this is a Nighthold, right? Grand Trine on Star Augur, and now the entire guild wipes, right? And you have to run back, and it's the whole thing over again, and everybody knows, like, oh yeah, you're not supposed to do that, and you always have, like, these secondary things that are out of people's control, right? Somebody lags, somebody uses an ability that's out of their control. There's a million different things that can happen to somebody that isn't necessarily their fault, and it just immediately triggers an entire raid wipe. And with Tomb of Sargeras, there were a little bit too many of those, in my opinion. And I think Blizzard agrees with me, especially whenever you look at the boss dynamics and the mechanics and everything. There aren't really that many, like, one player wipes the raid mechanics. And, Tomb of Sargeras had a lot of those on Avatar. It had those, obviously, on Kil'jaeden. It had that on Mistress to an extent. And on a lot of the other bosses, there were lesser versions of that headed on Maiden as well. And so there were so many of those different fights in Tomb of Sargeras that would just pretty much one mistake from one player would completely wipe the raid. And for me personally, I just really didn't have fun. And I know I always say fun is for casuals, but if you want a real word out of it, it just felt like I was wasting my time, right? It's like I don't want to sit through there and wait for everybody to not fuck up at the same time. Because that's what it felt like whenever I was doing a lot of the Tomb of Sargeras progression bosses, right? That's really, really what it was, honestly. Now, the next thing that I want to get into might be a little bit more of a contentious subject, but it is something that I do want to explore, which is the reward structure of raiding. Now, historically, raiding is always given the best gear entirely in the game. So it's like if you want to have the best sword in the game, you have to kill the last boss on the hardest difficulty, or just kill the last boss if it was early enough in the game, right? And nowadays, that is not the case. You can receive the best gear from, hypothetically, doing normal mode Emerald Nightmare, right? And this isn't necessarily like something where I'm saying that I like LFR players are getting mythic level gear. What it really is that the difficulty jump between doing heroic modes versus doing mythic difficulty modes is so substantial that the type of gear difference that you get between the two isn't enough to make me want to make that jump. So with heroic raids, I can do those whenever I want, with my friends that I want. I have pretty much complete control over who I'm going to bring, and it's just a pretty chill environment, right? There's nothing that's going to be too crazy or too out of the ordinary. Now, if you compare that over to Mythic raids, you have a very, very strict raid size. You have to, usually, if you're in a decent Mythic raiding guild, you usually have to raid at a certain time. And so it's like, yeah, guys, sorry, I've got to go home. I've got to do, Tomb of Sargeras progression. I've got to go wipe on Mistress Shazin for another 4 hours. It doesn't really seem like a good time. And also, it's like, you know, as I said, I mean, sometimes you want to hang out with your friends, and I don't want to have to like, you're like, yeah, I've got to, you know, go raid. And like maybe I would be more willing to do that if it gave unique rewards. But besides the transmog appearances, which are arguably not really that great or not that big of a deal, there aren't really a lot of those. So you have obviously the time requirements, and then you also have like all of the guild drama in general, which ties into another reason why I stopped, which is just there was a number of like just really dumb things that happened in my guild, and after like I put a lot of work and a lot of myself into like putting the guild first and really trying to make sure that things didn't fall apart in Nighthold and also into early Tomb of Sargeras. At a certain point, I was just fatigued, right, and I just needed a break. And I think that was another big reason. There's just so much drama going on in my guild, and I'm honestly just so glad a lot of that is over now. But whenever that was happening, it really made me feel like I don't know. It just felt like it was just too much stress, right? It was that on top of everything else. It was just too much. But going back to the reward structure again to talk about that a little bit more, heroic gear, if a Titan forges just a little bit, can actually be much better than Mythic gear. I have a number of pieces that are from Heroic that are actually already better than what I would get from base Mythic level gear. And for me, I feel like that kind of ruins and removes the sense of reward or the sense of prestige from doing Mythic, right? Whenever you did a Mythic raid, you were getting the best gear. Now that is no longer the case. If you still need to do Mythic raids to get the best gear, I might still be in there. And as I said before, if any one of these things on the list was different, maybe my entire outlook on this would be different. But I just feel like it was just kind of one of these was the straw that broke the camel's back. And ultimately, like whenever I see, you know, people with heroic gear, I can just go do heroic, like all tier, and basically get a full mythic set of gear. And obviously, somebody who's doing mythic raids is going to have better gear than somebody that's doing heroic raids on average, right? But the difference between the two isn't really worth the increase in difficulty, increase in time investment, and increase in all of the other, you know, secondary and like out of game stuff that you have to do, applying to the guild, you know, getting in Discord, like, you know, talking with them, being online at a certain time, making friends with people, loot council problems, EPGP problems, like all of these different little things that happen whenever you're part of a raiding guild. You don't have to deal with any of that whenever you do heroic. And oftentimes you have an opportunity to get gear that's even better than Mythic. And I feel like that's, obviously, I mean, I've talked about this a million times, but I don't really think that's a very good reward structure. So it's not necessarily people getting gear from an LFR that's better than like or normal mode that's better than Mythic. It's more that people that like just do heroic get gear that's maybe just about the same level as like Mythic baseline, right? So obviously people that are doing Mythic all the time are going to get a little bit better gear, but that difference isn't really worth the time investment. And so that's pretty much where I'm at. So those are pretty much the reasons why I stopped, and I kind of feel like a piece of shit for it in a way, right? I know a lot of people kind of rely on me, and you know, to be there for the raids and everything, and I felt kind of bad about it. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for yourself. And at a certain point, I just felt like I needed a break, and it's kind of weird for me because it's the first break that I've really taken from raiding since Old War. Really, I mean, it's kind of like weird, right? I mean, like at the end of expansions, I kind of stopped, but I was still always part of the core. And this is the first time for a long time that I've stopped. And I probably will come back at some point, and I do plan on it. Maybe do some more, you know, big dick DPS guides. But again, that goes back to the reward structure. You know, like everybody's kind of competing on a different playing field because everybody has different gear and everything. So that kind of makes things less fun for me, right? And so all of those things kind of put together have made raiding less of a rewarding and less of a compelling and, most importantly, less of a fulfilling experience. So I hope, you know, if anybody at Blizzard is watching this video, or if anybody has any idea, like, I would just like to get my thoughts out there and my feelings out there as somebody who's played the game for a very, very long time, somebody who's raided very seriously for a very, very long time as well, and what really made the difference for me. And hopefully that can help them. Hopefully, you know, if you're in my same shoes, you can identify with this. But I just really felt like I needed to make a video and talk about this because it's something that's been on my mind a lot. And actually making this video has really helped me get my thoughts out there and helped me understand why I made the decision just as much as I'm probably helping you guys understand it as well. So if you're kind of in my same shoes, go ahead and let me know why your reasons are. And if you're still rating, one thing that I'm really curious about is what really compels you to keep going. Why do you continue doing it? And I'm not trying to say that in a condescending or accusatory manner. I think that's great. You know, if people want to do that, it's fun. Like, I remember whenever I had that drive, it's just, I don't have that anymore. And I would really like to talk to people and see what really still motivates them. And it's just very interesting to me because, I mean, obviously, this is something I care a lot about. And I want to know, you know, I want to put my feedback out there. And maybe in some sort of a weird way, it can come back and help everybody. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I've got. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. And as always, please go ahead and comment below if you have anything to add to it. I try to read as many as I can. So especially with things like this, right? Because I want to know what people have to say. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. And like, comment, and subscribe.